So we're here today after over 3 years of struggle to save our San Francisco City College. I wanted to first give tremendous respect and props to the coalition of students, faculty and staff, and communities that have come together for several years of struggle to make sure that we save City College. And we put the stories of how City College has changed so many people's lives, lifted people out of poverty, and really lifted up our communities with artistic organizations, creativity, and political leadership over the years. We're also looking today at the status of City College given the various lawsuits, and we'll hear what I think is a great announcement of the signing of a new lease for the interim Civic Center campus and the 6-year lease. And I really thank the Chancellor and President Mandelman and others for that great news from yesterday. We'll also hear, I think, from the hundreds of students that took over Conlin Hall yesterday and rallied from noon to 6, some that are here today to address key issues like the cuts in classes, the changes in payment policies, and in many ways, different policies that I think the students and some are saying are harming some of the most vulnerable students at the college. I think the Coalition to Save City College deserves a lot of credit for working with the administrators and others for saving the college. With that, I'd like to ask if my colleagues, Supervisor Campos, Supervisor Kim, Supervisor Christensen, would like to make any comments. Supervisor Campos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I actually wanted to, first of all, thank the community that has come out. It's a pretty diverse community of faculty, of students, of folks from all walks of life who over the last couple of years have come together. So I just want to thank them for yet again being here in City Hall. But I just have one request. I actually would like to hear from the special trustee, if he's here. One of the points of having this hearing for me is to actually hear directly from the person that none of us have really heard from. So I'd like to ask the special trustee to please come up and say a few words.
Actually, Supervisor Campos, we have a number of speakers, but I think that is a really good idea if the special trustee is here.
So is the special trustee here? Is there anyone here representing the special trustee?
So, Supervisor Campos, we have a list of presenters, including Chancellor Art Tyler and President Rafael Mandelman.
No, but I understand that, and I want to hear from all those folks. But I think that I am actually just shocked that at a hearing on what's happening at City College in City Hall, that has been put together by members of the elected family in San Francisco, that the person that has been given pretty unlimited power vis-a-vis this institution is not here. I mean, I think that is very disrespectful, and it's actually not disrespectful to the electeds, because it's not about the electeds, it's about the people that we as electeds represent. It's very disrespectful to the people that elected the members of this Board of Supervisors who are here. So I hope that before this hearing ends, that we do hear from the special trustee. Is he in San Francisco? Where is he?
So why don't we, at the point that perhaps Chancellor Tyler comes up, that maybe he can address that, or Jeff Hamilton, but somebody from the administration. Supervisor Campos, we should hear opening remarks.
Okay, but I think I wanted to ask that question because I think that it illustrates the problem here, that we have a special trustee who is completely unaccountable, and who, when given the opportunity to come and speak to the elected representatives of this city, disrespects those constituents by not even showing up to a hearing in City Hall. I think that illustrates the point better than I could say. Thank you.
Supervisor Kim.
Thank you, Chair Mar. I just want to recognize, both Supervisor Mar and Campos for their leadership on this issue, but also working so closely with the students and faculty at CCSF around an institution that is incredibly important here in San Francisco, and I think we all recognize that. I'm here today because many of our residents in the Tenderloin were very concerned about the abrupt closure of 7-5 Eddy campus in January, Friday prior to commencement of the spring semester classes. And our office started to get engaged, working both with our residents, the faculty, but also reaching out to CCSF on what we could do to find a solution around providing this very important resource. I do want to recognize that there was a resolution introduced with Supervisor Mar, Avalos, Campos, Yee, and Christensen at the request of the Central City Coalition for Public Education, asking the administration of City College to develop a specific plan for creating an interim civic center campus while the college developed a longer-term plan for the seismic retrofit of 750 Eddy. As Supervisor Mar has already mentioned, I'm pleased that the administration has responded with a concrete plan for the interim campus, which they will talk about in their presentation for the civic center area.
Supervisor Christensen.
Just a brief comment. Certainly, I share my supervisor's enthusiasm for this topic, and it was my understanding that my staff had requested that I be added as a sponsor, but if that wasn't done, please do. I'm certainly fond of the college, especially our own District 3 Chinatown North Beach Financial District branch. Our office has been tracking developments related to the Tenderloin Civic Center location, and I was very heartened to find out yesterday that a new lease is in place and classes should be back on track for the fall semester. I think we still have some questions about the abruptness of that closure and the impact that it had. Hopefully that will not occur in the future. It does seem that there's some degree of consensus on the ills that beset City College, and I hope that we are working toward consensus on the solutions for those ills. I'm grateful to the Chancellor and Mr. Mandelman and others who are here today to inform us all of how things are going. Thank you.
I was the lawyer who did the opening statement at trial, and at trial I told the court that this case was about fairness, and that's how I would characterize it today. It was fairness that was denied City College, and the city couldn't sit back and ignore it. Our case was designated complex, which meant that we were all of the motions, and the trial was heard by one judge. We filed early on in the case a motion for preliminary injunction. Again, the City College's accreditation had already been terminated, voted to be terminated. That termination date was effective a year from the termination date. But we wanted to stop that, and we were fearful that as civil litigation goes, it would take too long for a case to go to trial, and that City College might lose its accreditation if the court didn't act in the interim. So we filed a motion for preliminary injunction. That motion was granted in January 30th of 2014. And at the time, the court said that the ACCJC was enjoined from finalizing the termination of City College's accreditation until further order of this court. So in June of 2014, everyone got to hit pause, and City College got some breathing room. The termination decision, although not set aside permanently, had been stayed. So the case could proceed through litigation without the threat that the college's accreditation would be terminated while we were waiting for a trial date. The ACCJC brought every challenge you can imagine to the city's complaint and to the city's ability to challenge an accreditor. Never in the United States had any public law office sought to challenge the decision of an accreditor, or the process by which an accreditor makes a decision through a law like our unfair competition law. First, they sought to remand the case to federal court. And they relied on a law that applies to institutions. When institutions want to challenge the substance of an accreditation decision, they have to go to federal court. We were the people. We were not the institution. We did not believe we were similarly tethered in our venue. That we won. They asked the court abstain from hearing this case because City College was on their own administratively appealing the termination of accreditation through the ACCJC's own process. Again, the court was not persuaded. Then the ACCJC had all sorts of doctrines that it believed, again, deprived the city as the people, from challenging the process by which they conducted their accreditation decisions. First, they said they weren't a business, although they charge institutions mightily for the accreditation activities, and they have paid staff. They alleged they weren't a business. They also said that the acts that they had committed were not unlawful or unfair. They said that they were like courts, so they should be barred, so our action should be barred by a doctrine of judicial immunity. They said that our action was preempted because because the U.S. Department of Education recognizes accreditors. And they said that our action should be barred by a doctrine rooted in the First Amendment called Nora-Pennington, which protects certain political speech. All of those theories were shot down by the court. We had a series of dueling motions for summary adjudication, trying to whittle down what would be decided at trial. We won a very small portion of that motion, but the court wanted to have a trial on this case. Wanted to have a trial quickly, and our trial was set for the last week of October 2014. Trial lasted 5 days. There were numerous witnesses who gave live testimony. We presented live expert testimony. The court also permitted us to submit testimony in the form of deposition transcripts. The court heard the arguments, considered all the evidence, and issued a tentative decision. And that tentative decision found that the ACCJC had violated California's unfair competition law. And it found that it violated not on every theory that we raised, but on theories of due process. That before an accreditor in California is going to strip an institution of accreditation, that institution has a right to know what the deficiencies are so they can respond. It's classic due process. Notice and that opportunity to be heard is what the court found City College had been deprived of. The court then issued its final judgment, and it included an injunction. And that injunction mandated that the ACCJC permit City College, if it chose, to opt into a process that would confer upon it the due process that it had lacked. Required that the ACCJC submit a written report with all of the deficiencies that it noted prior to taking its termination decision, and it gave the college an opportunity to respond to those deficiencies. City College was not a party in our case, and as the court acknowledged from the bench, that limited what the court could do or command City College to do. But in the end, I think the lawsuit achieved some really important objectives. First, the preliminary injunction gave City College time. It gave them time where the termination decision was held in abeyance. It also, interestingly, gave the ACCJC time to think and restructure. And in the period of time between the preliminary injunction being issued and the trial date, City College passed a new process that it presented to City College. It was called restoration. Restoration was a process that the ACCJC unfolded to give the college another opportunity to reactivate or come from under the termination decision. If not for the lawsuit, City College may have closed. City College has amazing support, but the ACCJC is the only accreditor. And losing accreditation is a hefty price, as many who will speak to you will explain. At this point, the court's injunction is valid. City College opted into the process where it's seeking review of it's seeking the remedy that the court laid out. And so it is in the process, it opted in, is it in the process of reviewing the written report and making comments. The City Attorney's Office wants to do everything and has done everything it can to keep City College open. And we are very heartened that City College has opted in and engaged in the process that the court has laid out. That process is not concluded, but so it should conclude in the coming months. I am happy to take any questions or any comments, but that's the status of the litigation at present.
Thank you very much. I don't have any comments. I just want to thank our Deputy City Attorney, Yvonne Mere, and also the City Attorney for the work that they have done on this. I do think that if City Attorney Herrera had not filed this lawsuit, that City College would be closed by now.
Where we are now, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you, it is going to take time, and I think it will likely take years for City College to fully recover from its recent near-death experience. It may be risen from the dead, but getting close to being dead is not good for you. And so there's a lot to do. Some of the immediate challenges that I worry about, well, the first is accreditation. And the restoration status that we are under gives us additional time until the beginning of until January of 2017 to fully meet all accreditation standards. And the remaining standards that where we are believed to be particularly deficient relate to student services and equity across our campuses and integrated planning in the institution, the idea that you are setting your goals and that your budgets and planning documents all kind of align and push you towards what your goals are as an institution. Both of those are things that I think a responsible and reasonable accreditor is within their rights to raise and things that we need to work on. We need to have it done by the end of 2016, basically. And we have to do that in an environment where you've already noted, Supervisor Mar, our enrollment has plummeted. Depending on how you count and what year you look at to start, it may be that our enrollment has gone down by as much as 37%. And that is directly tied to the funding that is available for a community college. Now, thanks to Senator Leno and our State Chancellor Harris and the California Federation of Teachers and Chinese for Affirmative Action, San Francisco organization that played an important role in this, we got what is called stabilization funding. Unique in the state. Nobody else is getting this. But when our enrollment declines and our funding would decline along with it, we are being not held harmless. We're still experiencing harm. We're taking a 5% cut each year. But the blow is softened, and we're not experiencing the tens of millions of dollars in losses that we would be experiencing absent that stabilization funding. The trouble is that money goes away in 2 years. And so if our enrollment has not gone back up by that time, the future there is concerning to me. In that environment, our faculty are underpaid and our staff are overworked. Our faculty have not received a raise since 2007. They are now I believe, among the lowest paid in the Bay 10. Our staff are doing more jobs than anyone should be expected to do because so many people have been laid off and they're so understaffed. We have a challenge of attracting and retaining excellent administrators, which we need to run this institution. I think of the 50-something administrators that we believe we need to run our college. We are missing about 15. Does that sound about right? We've talked a little bit about Civic Center and the recent closure of Civic Center, but our seismic safety issues at Civic Center are related to facilities maintenance issues across the system that some people have estimated maybe as much as $400 million of deferred maintenance. So we have huge facilities needs. If we've learned anything since the accreditation crisis began back in 2012, it's that City College is too important to be allowed to fail. The fact that it is still open is testament to the efforts of many. Our city attorney, absolutely, but also our state chancellor, critically. Community college CEOs from around the state who came together, who were brought together by the state chancellor to tell the ACCJC that they could not shut City College of San Francisco down. Our congressional leadership, I see Alex Lazar back there from Nancy Pelosi's office, and she's been critical. Jackie Spear has been essential in this fight. The Department of Education, our state legislators, as I said, this body, organized labor, our mayor, and our business community, frankly, have come together for City College. With that, I'm going to turn this over to a guy with, I think, one of the harder jobs in San Francisco right now, which is our Chancellor, Art Tyler.
President Mandelman, before Chancellor Tyler talks, Supervisor Campos had a comment.
I just want to note, and I want to thank President Mandelman for the leadership that he has demonstrated since he got elected to this Board of Trustees. I think he's played a very critical role, and I agree with everything you said. Where I will part ways with you, because I have yet to really hear any concrete evidence to the contrary, is I know that we all want to be nice, but I don't understand exactly what the mayor has done on this issue. My understanding from what the mayor has said is like he was actually publicly siding with the CCJC, was critical of City Attorney Herrera when he filed the lawsuit. And my understanding from folks in Sacramento is that he is one of the reasons why the duly elected Board of Trustees has not been restored, that he wants to go slow on that, even though the irony is that he just appointed a replacement to the Board of Trustees that he doesn't think should be reseated. So I agree with everything you said, but I think that we have to be honest about what's happened here. And I think that if it had been left to the mayor, I don't know that we would be where we are today. I say that as someone who's working with the mayor on a number of other issues, but who believes that on this issue he has had a different perspective, and it's a perspective that unfortunately has not sided with the vast majority of community members, but has actually sided with this entity that has been the main reason why we're here. So I just want to make it clear what my view is on that, because I think facts do matter.
And not to get into a colloquy about it. And certainly I'm not going to defend any of the people, and I think there were a lot, who failed to recognize the challenge that the ACCJC was presenting when it was first presented. It was the unusual people, including some of the people on the board, including yourself, I think, who recognized that the ACCJC needed to be responded to. I think that our Board of Trustees was known throughout the state as an example of dysfunction. One of the things that I've been able to do with AFT 2121 and CFT since this whole nightmare sort of began in earnest of July 2013 has been to go to other community colleges and talk about what's happened in San Francisco and why what's happened here is wrong. And I have met a number of people who knew about our board and knew about a board that seemed to be utterly dysfunctional. That is not a basis for removing a democratically elected board. But I don't think that the mayor's distrust of local control, I don't share it. I don't think he's unique in having doubts about the capacities of our Board of Trustees. I hope and I believe that we are proving the doubters wrong. In terms of, I don't know what all the mayor has done. I do know of a few distinct things. I know that he played a role in in arguing for and lobbying for the restoration process to be created, which is what is keeping us going right now. I know that there have been significant administrative and sort of resources in terms of people. I mean, one of our problems is the total lack of the lack of administrative capacity. We don't have enough people to do the work that needs to get done at City College. City departments, not in the administration, faculty and staff do a great job. In the administration, we don't have the capacity to do what needs to be done. And I believe that the mayor's office has provided significant resources in that regard. And I would also say that on something that I care deeply about, and I imagine we will be talking about, in terms of ensuring that to the extent that we dispose of our assets, real property assets, which is a controversial thing. But given that our students, one of the reasons we may be losing students is the fact that people cannot afford to live in San Francisco anymore. And the fact that we need to have, that affordable housing is a critical priority for this city, but also for our college. My understanding is that the mayor's office has been a helpful force, and I hope that we will continue to work with the mayor and the Board of Supervisors to ensure that, to the extent that the college stops using some of its property, that property is a public benefit and does generate significant affordable housing. So I don't think it's true that they've been absent. I think I disagree with them on sort of a key point over the last couple of years, which was the initial response to the ACCJC, but I do think that they have been present and helpful in a number of other ways.
Thank you, President Mandelman. Chancellor Art Tyler.
Well, thank you, Supervisors, for allowing me this opportunity to update you on the status of City College. Today I'm here to tell you that we had a visit from the largest accrediting team in the history of California in November. Some 26 people, 2 chairs, came to visit, and they looked in every nook and cranny. And yes, we still have some work to do, but we're down to 32 items across the 4 basic standards and 21 eligibility requirements. You've heard us mention the issues of enrollment. Right now we're on stability funding, and what that means is that our funding is stabilized at the same threshold as it was 3 years ago. It's an unusual practice. It's never happened in this state. And we've got to figure out how do we get back the confidence of the people, the confidence of the business community, and the confidence of the city and county departments to allow us to continue to be the most remarkable training agency, the most remarkable employment agency that this country's ever seen. We have the wherewithal to provide training in almost every skill category. And that's in addition to what we do for those of us who are sort of like me, who want to come back to school and do lifelong learning. That's part of our legacy. It's part of what we do, in addition to transferring more students to SF State and perhaps even Berkeley and Stanford than any other community college does. We're a little bit different than everybody else. Most community colleges, they build a college and everybody comes. City College goes to its community through its centers and tries to meet the needs of a very diverse but wonderful community. We're in the process of upgrading our student services as required by the accreditors. And most important in that aspect is that we're going to provide equity. We can't provide equal services because nothing's ever equal, but we're going to make sure that at our centers we're providing the same quality of support and services to every student possible. You know, I just finished hiring a new Vice Chancellor for student development, and he is going to help me accomplish that critical mission. There are a lot of things that we've done, and I want to make sure I leave some time for my president, but you may have seen where we were just in a press conference just around the corner here with Congresswoman Jackie Spear and my partner to the south, Chancellor Ron Galatolo, where we're reaching out to those students who were abandoned by the negligence and the criminal behavior of a for-profit institution, Corinthian. We reached out with a team of 12 people over at Heald College, not too far around the corner from our downtown center, and we touched over 300 students in less than 2 days. And we're still continuing to help them. I could stand up here and talk for another hour about the challenges with some of our sites. But let me make it perfectly clear that I have no intention of closing any of the centers that we have. In fact, the first decision I had to make when I got here as a chancellor was whether or not we were going to close the Southeast campus. And the answer was no. Now, we have to follow the law. And when it comes to obligations to that law, in this case the Field Act and the Green Acts that followed it, we have an absolute responsibility to do the right thing and in a timely manner. Otherwise, the trustees and myself this is the one area of the law where we become personally liable, And more importantly, it isn't a good practice to put students at risk. So yes, I made the decision to close the Civic Center because the law demands that I do so. However, working with a very limited staff, we put together plans, and we've been working to try to replace that center. Yes, we had to disperse students out to some of our other campuses, but we also recognize the challenges that those students have. We gave them free bus passes. We tried to counsel them on how they could take other courses in other places, and we will continue to do that anytime we have a crisis like that. But I'm very glad to say that after months of negotiation with the Art Institute, just right here on the end of the plaza, we're able to secure a really fine academic environment to reinstitute the classes and all of the classes that we had originally at 750 Eddy.
President Mandelman and Chancellor Tyler, I know that Supervisor Campos had raised this, and the hundreds of students that were at Conlin Hall yesterday were demanding the elimination of the special trustee with extraordinary powers. I know you just mentioned that the powers are not extraordinary, but could you comment on why he's not here, but also even on the students' demands and others' demands?
I'm imagining that he may not have known that he was expected to be here. Sometimes the communication around, I was not, I don't know. I was not entirely sure on how this would work until I called over yesterday.
Supervisor Campos?
So just a quick question about the special trustee, and I want to thank Chancellor Tyler for all the work he's done, and I really appreciate, by the way, the work that City College did around the fires and the mission. Just a couple of facts. How much money does the trustee guy Lease make? Do you know?
I don't have that number on the top of my head, but it is public information. I can get it for you, Supervisor.
Is it more than 200,000?
I don't believe so. He has a different contract than the previous special trustee had, and therefore his compensation is different and less.
And
I don't know the exact number.
And does he live in San Francisco right now?
No, he does not.
Where does he live?
He commutes back and forth from Lake Tahoe.
Does City College compensate him for the commute?
He has a vehicle that is a college vehicle that he uses, yes.
Does City College pay for his gas on the vehicle?
I believe we do, yes.
And how many hours a week does he work?
He works at the college 4 days a week, and then he works from home 1 day a week. Sometimes it's 5 days a week, just depending on whether or not we've got training for our board, and sometimes he then compensates by going back home. Let's say he works 3 days a week when he's also working on the weekends.
So does he work at the college 3 days a week or 4 days a week? I'm just trying.
It depends.
It depends. And who does he report to?
He reports to the State Chancellor's office and the State Chancellor himself.
Chanel Williams?
Good afternoon, Supervisors Mar, Campos, Kim, and Christensen. I have served as a student trustee at the college for the past 2 years and served as president of Ocean Campus for a year. I first want to thank all of you and especially thank the community, the students, the staff, and the faculty for all of the work. It's been a lot of ups and downs over the past 3 years, and I feel like we are sort of moving forward, but there still are a number of challenges that definitely need to be addressed, and definitely we invite all of the Board of Supervisors to continue to watch what's happening at the college. And a special thanks, of course, to City Attorney Herrera, because, of course, if we did not have that injunction, we would indeed be closed. And I know that some of the administration have a different view on that, but it's very clear to me that we would be closed if we didn't have that injunction. So it really does take a village to save a college, right?